Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going deep, deep, deep into the world of truth and knowledge, which, you know, we all think we know what those are, right? Turns out philosophers have been wrestling with these ideas for centuries. Luckily, we've got some excerpts from this philosophy text to help us unpack it all. And right off the bat, it throws us this concept, justified true belief, or JTB for short.
Ah, yes, JTB.
It sounds kind of self-explanatory at first, like you believe something and it's actually true and you've got good reasons for thinking so.
Yeah,
That's got to be knowledge, right?
right. It seems pretty intuitive.
Yeah. The text even uses this example of like, imagine you're on a train from Brussels to Paris. You glance out the window, see the station, you think, okay, this is definitely Brussels.
Okay.
But to actually know it, according to JTB, you need a few things. First, you got to actually believe it.
Makes sense.
Okay, fair enough. Then it has to actually be true. Like it can't just be a really convincing model train set you're looking at. And lastly, you need some kind of justification for that belief. Like maybe you remember seeing the station signs or you double checked your ticket.
Yeah.
So it all seems pretty logical so far.
Right, and that's the beauty of JTB. It just feels right, you know? It's this nice, neat theory that gives us that solid ground we crave for our beliefs. But, and this is philosophy, so there's always a but.
Haha. I was just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
There's a catch, a pretty significant one.
Okay, lay it on me. What's the catch?
So back in the 60s, this philosopher, Edmund Gettier, came along and really shook things up with something called the Gettier problem.
The Gettier problem.
Yeah, and basically he came up with these scenarios where you could tick all the JTB boxes, you have the true belief, you've got your justification, everything seems legit.
Okay.
But you still end up with something that doesn't feel like real knowledge. More like you just got lucky.
Oh, now I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
It's like those, how did I know that moments?
Exactly. And the textbook gives this great example with this guy named Frederick, who just wants to know what time it is.
Okay.
He looks at a clock, sees it's 12 o'clock, and believes it. He's justified because, well, clocks are usually right about the time.
Right.
And by some cosmic coincidence, it actually is 12 o'clock.
So Frederick's a happy camper, right? He got his JTB, end of story.
Not quite. Here's the thing. Frederick doesn't realize the clock's been broken for days. He just got lucky.
Oh.
So does he really know it's 12 o'clock?
Hmm.
Not really, right? That's the Gettier problem in a nutshell. It highlights how you can sometimes be right for the wrong reasons, and that doesn't feel like true knowledge.
That's kind of unsettling. It makes you wonder how much of what we think we know is just us getting lucky.
Right. It really makes you question things. And that's the heart of it all. The Gettier problem really throws a wrench into things and forces us to confront this idea that maybe, just maybe, knowing something with absolute certainty, it might be a lot harder than we think.
Okay, so if we can't always be sure if our beliefs are actually knowledge, even when they seem justified and true, where do we go from here?
Well, that leads us to an even bigger question. What is truth anyway? How do we even begin to define it?
Ooh, okay, now we're getting to the good stuff.
Well, luckily for us, this philosophy text we've got doesn't shy away from the tough questions.
I like where this is going.
It dives headfirst into different theories about what truth really means, and let me tell you, it gets pretty wild.
Oh, I am here for it. Hit me with those truth theories.
Okay, so we've got a few major players here. We've got the correspondence theory, we've got the coherence theory.
Okay.
And, of course, for all you pragmatists out there, there's, well, pragmatism.
Pragmatism, okay. That one always makes me think about those, like, lucky exam day socks some people have.
Uh-huh, yes, perfect example.
You know, like all about what works.
Right, like it doesn't matter if those socks actually have magical exam passing powers.
Exactly.
As long as believing in them gives you a little boost of confidence. It's the outcome that matters. It's less about some abstract idea of truth and more about what actually plays out in the real world.
Okay, I can get behind that. What else we got?
All right, so on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you've got the correspondence theory. It's a real classic in philosophy.
Okay.
This one's all about our thoughts lining up perfectly with reality.
So, like, if I were to say...
Like a map of the territory.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So if I were to say, like, there's a coffee cup on the table right now, that statement is only true if there's, well, an actual coffee cup on an actual table.
Exactly. That's it. It's that straightforward, what you see is what you get kind of deal.
Okay, makes sense.
But even within the correspondence theory camp, things can get a little more, shall we say, intricate.
Oh, I bet. This is philosophy after all.
Right. So you've got some philosophers like Thomas Aquinas who link the whole truth thing to God.
Okay.
He argued that our thoughts are only true if they're in sync with God's divine knowledge.
Ah, so truth is this big divine blueprint.
I see. Precisely. Then you've got someone like Bertrand Russell,
Okay.
who took a bit more of a, we'll call it a grounded approach.
Okay.
He was all about those cold, hard, provable facts.
So no need to bring God into it for him.
Not so much. For Russell, truth meant a statement had to correspond with something we can actually verify in the world. Something concrete.
Got it. Just the facts, ma'am. I like his style.
Haha, yeah. But, it's funny because in his quest for this super solid logical truth,
Oh,
Russell actually stumbled upon a bit of a paradox himself.
of course he did.
It's now known as the Russell paradox.
Ah, yes, the Russell paradox. That one always makes my head spin a little bit. What was it again?
It's a real brain twister. It's basically asking whether the set of all sets that don't contain themselves actually contains itself.
Oh, okay, yeah. Hearing it out loud again, I can feel the wheels turning, but not quite connecting.
It's a tough one for sure. But what it did was expose a flaw in set theory. Like the very foundation of logic and math kind of felt shaky after that. And this just further complicates our understanding of truth.
Absolutely.
Shows that even seemingly simple concepts can lead to some serious head scratching. Okay, so we've got divine blueprints, we've got mind-bending paradoxes.
Following along.
But wait, there's more. The last contender on our truth-seeking journey, the coherence theory.
Okay.
This one takes a different path altogether. It says truth isn't about reflecting some external reality.
Okay.
It's about how well our beliefs fit together.
So like a jigsaw puzzle almost.
Exactly, like a puzzle.
Okay.
You've got a new piece, a new belief, and you're trying to figure out where it fits within your existing beliefs.
Gotcha.
If it clicks in, if it creates this nice, coherent picture, well, you're more likely to accept it as true. But if it clashes with everything you already hold to be true...
Then you've got to re-examine it.
Exactly. It's that inherent desire for consistency in our thinking.
It makes sense. It's
Yeah.
like when you read something and it just doesn't quite fit with everything else you know to be true about the world. Like, something's not adding up here.
Yeah. It's that feeling. And the coherence theory basically says that's how we build our understanding of truth from this web of interconnected beliefs.
Okay, so we've got aligning with reality. We've got fitting into our existing beliefs.
Right. And it's constantly evolving.
It seems like there's a whole other layer to this whole truth thing, though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because how do we even talk about any of this without bumping into the limitations of language itself?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right. Like, words are slippery things.
Oh, tell me about it.
It's like playing a never-ending game of telephone.
Haha. Right?
The message starts one way, and by the time it's gone around a few times,
Completely different.
totally different. Except, with truth, the stakes are a little bit higher than just a funny misunderstanding. It's like we almost need a universal translator for ideas,
Right. Wouldn't that be something?
Right. So we could be sure we're all actually talking about the same thing when we talk about truth.
Exactly. But yeah, that's the issue language brings to the table. And luckily, this philosophy text, it really digs into this whole language thing. It introduces us to this guy, Ludwig Wittgenstein, and his concept of language games.
Ah, yes, Wittgenstein. Always got to bring him in for the really juicy philosophical conundrums.
Right. He was a real revolutionary thinker, that's for sure. And his whole thing was that words, they don't have these fixed objective meanings,
Okay.
Like they're not just floating out there in some abstract void. The meaning depends completely on the context, on the rules of the specific language game we happen to be playing in that moment.
Okay, so now I'm picturing a bunch of philosophers, huddled around a table.
Uh-huh.
But instead of rolling dice, they're like throwing out words like truth and knowledge and hoping they land in the right spot.
Well, maybe not literally a board game, but I like the analogy. And actually, the text gives this really great example. It talks about a roofer who shouts tile,
Yeah. To another roofer on that same job, that one word, it speaks volumes.
Right.
They need a tile. It's urgent. Get it over here.
Exactly.
But to someone who's just walking down the street,
Right.
it's going to mean nothing. Or if it means something, it's not going to be what those roofers meant.
It reminds me of those times you accidentally walk in on a conversation already in progress. You catch the tail end of it, and you're like, what in the world are they talking about?
Exactly. You're just hearing words, but you're missing the whole context, the backstory, all of it.
Totally.
And what Wittgenstein's saying is, we're all kind of doing that all the time, to some degree. We're always navigating these different language games, each with its own set of rules, assumptions, all of that.
Okay, so that makes sense. But if meaning is so fluid, if it's so dependent on context, what does that even mean for our pursuit of truth?
Right. Well, it gets even trippier from here.
Okay, bring it on.
Because now we've got this other philosopher, Willard Van Orman Quine. He comes in with an even more radical take.
He argues that there's no such thing as a perfectly neutral language.
Okay.
Like completely free from any cultural or theoretical baggage,
Whoa, wait, hold on. So you're saying even when we try to be objective, our words are still betraying us?
In a way, yes. And he has this thought experiment that's really helpful. Imagine you're an anthropologist, right?
Okay.
You're studying a tribe. They speak a language you don't understand at all.
Okay, I'm with you.
They point to a rabbit hopping by and they say, Gavagai.
Gavagai.
Okay.
It's pretty obvious what that means, right?
Yeah. They're pointing at a rabbit. They're saying a word. It's got to be rabbit.
Right. That's what it seems like. But that's
Yeah.
exactly what Quine wants us to question.
Okay.
Because we can't be totally 100% certain that's what they mean.
Hmm.
Maybe Gavagai, it refers to a very specific kind of rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it only refers to rabbits in a certain context.
Okay.
Or maybe, and this is the really wild part, maybe it refers to something we can't even imagine because our whole way of seeing the world is so different. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, my brain is definitely doing a loop-de-loop again. So are you telling me that even something like all baby dogs are puppies, even that's up for debate?
If we're taking Quanang seriously, yeah, even that seemingly simple statement becomes a little shaky.
Wrong.
Because we can never be completely, totally sure that we're truly, deeply understanding each other,
Right.
let alone the universe we live in.
Yeah.
Our language, these tools we use to make sense of it all,
Right.
they might actually be making the whole truth-seeking thing even more complicated.
Wow. This whole deep dive has been quite a ride. We've questioned our own beliefs. We've gone through all sorts of theories of truth.
Right.
And now we're left grappling with the very words we're using to talk about all this.
Yeah.
So where do we even go from here?
I think the biggest takeaway, and this is true of so much in philosophy, is that the more we dig into these questions about truth, about knowledge,
Yeah.
the more we realize the answers aren't always simple, or maybe even that simple answers don't really exist.
So it's less about like checking boxes and more about just being open to the journey, to exploring the questions themselves.
Yes, exactly. It's about staying curious, staying open to different perspectives, and realizing that our understanding of truth, it's always evolving.
It's a journey, not a destination.
I like it.
Well, on that note, a huge thank you to you for taking us on this incredible journey through some seriously big ideas. And to all of you listening, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those questions coming.